My class is going to be a retrospect of the 11 symphonic works of Mahler. That's the first thing I teach everybody in the first class, that they're not 9 symphonies, not 10, but they're actually 11 symphonic works. Mahler's a fascinating composer. He's the culmination of all the innovations of the 19th century, where basically anything goes emotionally in orchestral music. Things get bigger, more expansive, and Mahler caps the 19th century. He wasn't very well known as a composer during his lifetime. He was only known basically as a conductor. He was considered the greatest conductor of his age and maybe the greatest conductor who ever lived. But he worked in the opera house his entire life, and he only had time to compose during the summer months when he was not obligated to do any opera work. And he was able to most summers work. Some summers he couldn't because he had other family obligations and other things to do. But every summer he wrote another symphony or started another symphony. And they're massive works. The smallest Mahler symphonies is about 45 minutes long. The largest one is almost 2 hours long. And he really wanted his compositions to be well known. He traveled, he conducted these works, but they were not very popular during his lifetime because they expressed his inner feelings. And people were not comfortable, especially in Vienna, where he worked with a composer, basically spilling his emotional life out on a piece of paper for people to hear. So people reacted very badly to his music. He had a few successes during his lifetime as a composer, but not much. And he had also the Nazis to deal with. I mean, he was dead by then, of course. But since he was Jewish, his music was considered degenerate and banned. And so music wasn't played for decades. And then after World War II, when things started up again, orchestras did not have a lot of money to put on productions, kind of like what's going to happen after this pandemic calms down a little bit. And Mahler always wanted huge orchestral forces. So it took a while in the 1950s for his music to be played again, but something happened in 1960, what's known as the Mahler Renaissance. It's 100 years after he was born. He was born in 1860. And due mainly to Leonard Bernstein and the New York Philharmonic, his recordings of the first cycle of Mahler symphonies and his production of symphonies in New York City, Mahler became much more popular. And the neuroses, the personal neuroses in his music, which he portrays so well, Mahler, now looked universal because we were so much more neurotic in some ways in the 1960s, maybe not actually. And his music became much more popular and spread worldwide. So basically my 4-week class is going to cover his 11 symphonic works, how they're autobiographical in the 4 major compositional periods of his life. We'll be looking at videos of performances, comparing performances between different conductors, and hopefully giving you an overview of life in Vienna at the end of the 19th century into the beginning of the 20th century, and people's opinions of Mahler as a person. We'll talk about his personal life. He married a lady named Alma, and she very much influenced his life and music. And we'll talk about the Mahler Renaissance, as I mentioned, from 1960 on, and how he is viewed as one of the great composers now. The last thing I want to mention is that I love his music. I started listening to his music when I was 19 years old. A friend of mine made me sit down one weekend at UC San Diego and basically locked me in his dorm room and made me listen to all of Mahler's symphonies. And I basically fell in love with it. And I've been listening to Mahler for 50 years now, and I never get tired of his music. It's rich, it's deep, the emotional landscape is incredible, and the way he uses the orchestra is phenomenal. He's the greatest orchestrator, in my opinion. He knows exactly what instruments to do, a flute melody here, a cello melody here, to express his very large emotional range. So I hope you can join us for the class. Thank you.